How's it going, everyone? How are you doing today? I am going over our controversial win over Rennes. I feel based off the way we handled the second half, we did deserve it, but I don't think the game would have went the same if a certain decision had been made differently from the ref, and ultimately I'm not too comfortable with this win. I don't think it should have been a 3-0 win regardless. I think a 1-0 probably would have been fine, but of course whenever we win, we get a really good win or something, there has to be some kind of controversy so people can talk trash. But to get right into it, so I can get my thoughts out on that. To get into the lineups first, for Chelsea we had a 4-3-3. We had Zuma and Thiago Silva, the center back duo. Edouard Mendy in goal on the left, Ben Chilwell on the right, Reece James. The midfield trio was Mount, Jorginho, and Kanté. And up top on the left, Werner, Abraham, striker. On the right wing, Hakim Ziyech. Now as for our substitutes, we had Rudiger, Emerson, Kovacic, Giroud, Hudson-Odoi, Caballero, Azpilicueta, Alonso, Christensen, Tomori, and Zeiger for Chelsea. They played in, did I say 4-3-3? They played in a 4-3-3. I don't know if I mentioned that. For Rennes, they played in a 4-1-4-1. Again, a very similar lineup to their lineup against Brest over the weekend. They had Gomes in goal, De Silva and Aguerd, the center back duos. On the right, Traore, on the left, Dalbert. The center defensive mid was Nzonzi. The center mid duo was Borijod, Lea Siliki. On the left, Terrier. On the right, Boho, and up top, Girassi. Now for their substitutes, they had Grenier, Trufer, Doku, who I'll talk more about later, Del Castillo, Huno, Salin, Niamsi, Routier, Bonnet, Assignon, Ugo Chukwu, and Omari. Pretty strong lineup for Rennes there. And it showed in the first half, honestly. For the first 30 minutes or so, well, honestly, for the first 40 minutes or so, Rennes did incredibly well in this game. It looked like they were gonna, from the beginning, it looked like they were gonna play a little more defensive in this game. They had a bit more of a defensive setup. Steven Nzonzi was acting more as a third center back. He was dropping back a lot, dropping back into their defense and helping out. So it kind of became a 5-4-1 for them at certain times, and that's what brought a lot of defensive solidity. In the 8th minute, Hakim Ziyech brought our first chance with a ridiculous volley attempt. He hits it on the edge of the box and it just dips just over the bar. And what a way to have started the game. That would have been insane. But unfortunately, he did miss. It went over the bar, like I mentioned. And we were left to wait a minute. A minute before Werner receives a pass on the right-hand side of the field. He dashes into the box, takes a clever touch, and gets tripped up by Dalbert for a penalty. It was a clear penalty. He chips him up. It's nothing to complain about. Dalbert does get a yellow card, and that will become important later on in this half. Now, Timo Werner over Jorginho as the penalty taker, which I think is good. Jorginho has missed a couple penalties, so it's good to shake it up, let another player start to take the penalties, and Timo Werner slots this one away. Gomes gets a slight touch to it, but it's not enough to keep it out. And it's a huge start from Chelsea, and it's something you would think we would take advantage of and start getting all kinds of momentum, but Rennes did incredibly well and responded incredibly well, and they kept us at bay. They really kept us at bay. We were attacking, but we just weren't quite just getting that final ball. They weren't getting that final pass. But you could say the same for Rennes. They were doing about the same as us. We were both passing the ball around a lot, but neither team could really get that final chance, that final ball, that final shot. Nobody could really get it. Nobody could really expose the other team, and we were trying to stretch each other. That's the thing with our passing, is you're trying to stretch each other and force the other team to create space. So that's what I found funny, is we were trying to play each other essentially, and at the same time, while we were attacking, and then it was just a really good game to watch. It was honestly very entertaining, and it was until the 37th minute. Now, in the build-up of this play, Mason Mount gets the ball, and I believe he turns the defender, and then the defender steps on his foot, and Mount manages to get a pass off to, I think it was Ziyech. Ziyech receives the ball, passes it, he lays it off for Tammy Abraham. Tammy Abraham takes a shot. Now, in this entire play, in this little section right here, Mount was down. Like I mentioned, he got stepped on, his ankle was hurt, so he was down this whole time. Now, the reason why the play got called was because Mason Mount was down. However, during this ensuing play, when Abraham took his shot, he takes a shot and it hits Dalbert, the Rennes left back. It hits him on the foot and bounces up over his arm, which is up here and coming down. So it hits his foot, his arm's up here, he's jumping, it hits his foot, I think he's jumping, or he might be sidestepping, and it hits his foot, and as it comes up, his arm is coming down and it hits the ball, you know, with what would be a handball, and hits it down. Now, like I mentioned, the play was stopped not because of that, but because Mason Mount was down. However, during the pause, they went over it in VAR and ruled it a handball. Now, with this decision, honestly, it's a new rule for soccer in general, overall, and honestly, it's harsh. It's a harsh rule. It really is. It's unfortunate that it was a sort of natural. He was going like this, like I believe he was sidestepping or something like that, and it hit his foot and it bounced up to his arm, and it's unfortunate. It's harsh, and honestly, if it hadn't gotten called a handball, okay, I really wouldn't have complained. And the fact that it did get called, I was like, okay, like either way, I would have been like, okay, it's okay, you call the penalty, okay. But what I don't agree with was the second yellow card that Dalbert received. Remember that he got one for the earlier penalty, he got a second one for this one, and honestly, I don't agree with that. It wasn't an intentional handball. It was as accidental as it could come. And you think back to the penalty against Krasnodar that we had, where it bounces off his chest, bounces off his arm. That's purely accidental, but they gave the penalty, okay, but they didn't give a yellow for that one. This one, it hits off his foot and bounces up quickly to his arm. Not much he can do. It's accidental. You want to call a handball, fine, but I just think the yellow card is harsh, especially when it leads to a red. And that's when the game just changed. That's when it just changed completely. Well, first of all, the penalty, Timo Werner slots the second penalty away. He fires it into the left side of the net, and we go up 2-0 into the half. And maybe not the most deserved lead. I feel like Rennes maybe deserved a more even scoreline. However, that red card would go on to change the face of the game. And in the second half, we came out strong and we were passing around. We were already taking advantage of the space that's left by keeping one man open. Rennes really couldn't get forward. They had to stay back quite a bit, and we were just coasting, honestly. And then, well, our initial pressure and all that resulted in a cross from Reece James going into a tap in for Tammy Abraham in the 50th minute, making it 3-0. And from that point on, honestly, up until about the 75th minute, we were coasting. We were good. We were coasting. We were taking advantage of the extra man, keeping possession, controlling the game. By the 78th minute, we had 65% possession compared to Rennes' 35%, and that should tell you just how much we were just holding on to the ball. And after the goal, I mean, we pressured here and there. Giroud had a couple chances to make it 4-0, but it was ultimately really just keep the ball and don't concede. That became the game where Chelsea just played possession. Now, something I do want to highlight, I mentioned it earlier, in the 62nd minute, there were a few substitutions that were made. However, one I want to highlight is Jeremy Doku. He's a young Belgian for Rennes. He used to play for Anderlecht in the Belgian league. He came on, and with the way he played for the rest of the game, it honestly left me questioning why didn't he start? Why didn't he start this game? Now, they do have an upcoming game against PSG, so maybe that's why, you know, but you have two back-to-back games, and I'm sure this kid can handle it, because he came out and he came out swinging. He pressured us, and he did incredibly well. He was making plays, he was a threat, and he's one of the main reasons why the last about 10-15 minutes, Rennes started pressuring us towards the end, and it became, oh, hold the clean sheet, because he was creating a lot of plays, he was creating a lot of pressure, and he was just a threat. I believe he was coming down the right hand, no, I think they put him on the left hand side, and he was pressuring us. I think he might have transitioned to the right or back and forth, because there were times where he was coming down the right and really pressuring us, and it just kind of made me question, like, why wouldn't you start him? And maybe, I mean, you can't really predict a player's performance, but he came out and he did incredibly well, and it'll be interesting to see how they use him in the rematch. Now, I do believe Rennes did deserve a little more from this game, honestly. In the 84th minute, though, the final highlight of the game, they forced a nice save out of Edouard Mendy, and he was able to keep the clean sheet. And honestly, despite everything that happened, Rennes did show a lot of character, and you got to give him a lot of respect, because, you know, two decisions don't go their way. One is fair, the second one not so much, and the second one I honestly disagree with. I don't agree with the red card. I think that's a ridiculous decision from the ref, and it just changed the complexity of the game. It really changed everything about the game, and Chelsea were able to take advantage of the space that Rennes weren't really allowing them earlier in the first half. In the first half, Rennes weren't really allowing Chelsea to expose any kind of space, but then in the second half with a man down, there's always going to be that extra space. So Chelsea were able to get in behind and find those openings, and I just think it's unfortunate that Rennes had to deal with that, and it's freaking. Of course, like I mentioned, we get this big win, but we get this controversial red card, so it's really unfortunate, but. This does make me excited to see the rematch between these two teams. I want to see the rematch. I want the manager to start Doku because I want to see him from the get-go. I want to see how he starts, how he reacts. And Chelsea should have our strongest lineup going into that game. Kai Havertz was out because he was diagnosed with coronavirus, so he'll be out for the weekend too. Great. But it'll be interesting to see the rematch. And I mean, this was mostly our strongest lineup. I just think Havertz would have added something, and Pulisic. I don't know why. How could I forget? Pulisic would add something to this team, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see the rematch against Rennes. Now, for my interesting facts about the game, I did not realize that in our group we have not faced any team. We never faced Krasnodar, we never faced Rennes, and we never faced Sevilla. So this is the first meeting between us and Rennes. They are the 56th different side we face. Obviously, the 55th being Krasnodar, the 54th being Sevilla. And Chelsea have only lost one of their last 10 home games against Ligue 1 sides. The only time we have lost was against PSG back in, I believe, 2015-2016. The 2015-2016 Champions League, the season that we do not talk about. We do not talk about the 2015-2016 season, okay? We don't talk about that. Another thing I want to mention is Edouard Mendy is closing in on the most consecutive clean sheets by one keeper. He's at 5 right now, I believe, and the record is 9. He's still 4 games off, obviously, but it'll be interesting to see him if he can break that record. If Chelsea's defense holds on for that long, I'll be incredibly impressed. And another thing I want to mention is on this match day, this UCL match day overall, there were 62 goals. The record for the most in a single match day is actually 63. So teams almost broke the record this weekend. I thought it was crazy how many free scoring teams there were. You had games like Borussia Mönchengladbach against Shakhtar 6-0. You had Juventus over, who was it? Ferencváros? How do you pronounce that name? I don't remember. But another team in their group, it was like 4-0. And then you had the Bayern win 6-2. You had the Sevilla win 3-2, that's 5 goals. All these crazy high-scoring games, and then you have Chelsea 3-0. You have like Dortmund, I believe that was 3-0. And I think it's interesting that teams are just getting more and more free scoring, and they're just scoring for fun. It's ridiculous. But one thing I do want to say about this game is this. I never really expected it to be easy. There's a reason. Rennes just proved. There's a reason why they landed 3rd last season. There's a reason why they won the Coupe de la Ligue in Ligue 1. And there's a reason that they've taught PSG a couple times already. They are a good scrappy side. They're strong. They know what they know what it takes to win. And that's pretty obvious. They're willing to do it. But it's just unfortunate that some decisions went against them in this game, and some really unfortunate decisions. I mean, the first penalty fair. Dalbert did trip Werner in the box, but the second decision, first of all, calling the handball, and then, which apparently is the rule with overhead hand, whatever. But second of all, giving the second yellow for the red, that changed the game completely. And unfortunately, I think it ultimately was one of the amongst, if not the main reason why they couldn't really make an impact in that second half until it's really towards the end when Chelsea just kind of dropped back and played more defensive. But I from the beginning, from when they called this group, everybody was counting out Sevilla, everybody was counting out Krasnodar, and everybody was counting out Rennes. Everybody was counting out all 3 of these teams and saying Chelsea, this is such an easy group for Chelsea, and I wholeheartedly disagree now. After watching Sevilla play, I already knew. They discredited Sevilla, the Europa League champions, by the way. They discredited Sevilla, and honestly, I was looking forward to the games because I knew Sevilla would bring a great challenge. They discounted Krasnodar because they're a Russian side, probably, and they're not in a big league or whatever, and Krasnodar has given everyone a challenge. everyone a challenge. Despite the 4-0 scoring against Chelsea, it probably should have been like 2-1 or 1-0 or something like that. And then they discredit Rennes, who, aside, I mean, if the red card hadn't come along, I would have been really curious to see how Chelsea would have handled a 1-0 lead going into the second half. Because that penalty doesn't happen, that red card doesn't happen. How do we approach the second half? You know, so all three of these teams I'm giving mad respect to. I already had a lot of respect for Sevilla because they're a team that's constantly underrated. But Krasnodar and Rennes have really shown that they can handle this. They can be with the big dogs in the Champions League. It's just they got to pull out some results. That's really it. And mad respect to all three of these teams. And I'm really excited to see the rematches because this is it. Now we're getting into the rematches against these teams. Like I mentioned, I'm very excited to see Rennes versus Chelsea again in a couple weeks or so. And then I'm excited to see Chelsea versus Sevilla again. And I'm excited to see Chelsea versus Krasnodar again. These teams have proven a lot in this group. And I'm honestly I'm honored to be with these other teams in this group because they are all very talented and they all are very exciting to watch. And again, crazy amount of respect to all three of these teams. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. Go check out the socials in the description. My Twitter is @BlueHermit1. My Instagram is @BlueHermit_. Please share your socials, share your friends, family, everybody know. Let the people know Blue Hermit's where it's at. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.